Welcome to Game Changers live from Miami, Florida. My name is Sergio. Tigera. I'm your host. And each and every week, we bring you someone who has been a game changer in their field and who's touched the lives of thousands to get their perspective on their journey, their mindset, their struggles and successes so that we can inspire you on your journey. So let's get started right now. And welcome to Game Changers Live. I'm your host, Sergio Tigera. We can come to you each and every week on your favorite podcast channel, either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, LinkedIn, you name it. And you can also find us on Comcast in South Florida, Mondays and Wednesdays at 5:30. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Your support makes a huge difference. So make sure to hit subscribe and like, and make sure to ring the bell so that you get notified whenever an episode comes out. We're coming to you live from our beautiful home studios here at Florida International University's College of Communications, Architecture, and the Arts. You can find out more at carta.fiu.edu. Be sure to check them out. And thank you so much for your support. We're now in the top 2% of all podcasts globally. So thank you so much for being there. And so my guest today is David Jemmett. He's CEO of Cerberus Sentinel. He's a successful entrepreneur and a leader in the cybersecurity industry. He's got over 35 years of executive management and technology experience with telecommunications, managed services, and cybersecurity consulting. And he presently serves as a CEO and founder of Cerberus Cyber Sentinel Corporation. He's spoken before both the U.S. Congress and Senate subcommittees on telecommunications and internet security. And he shared his expertise on broadband networking technologies as a guest speaker on CBS, on CNN, MSNBC, and C-SPAN. So you may have seen him around. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you. I appreciate having me, Sergio.
All right. So you're located in Arizona. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background. So you've been in this industry for quite some time, pretty much since its inception. Probably in the 80s and 90s. So tell me a little bit about kind of your background and how did you get into the space?
Well, you're kind of aging. You just put my age out there. So, it was called ARPANET. And most people don't know the internet evolved out of the government because it was called ARPANET. They created it so all the nuclear sites would be able to be connected. And it started to go into commercial. And I saw Rick Adams, the founder of UUNet Technologies. I saw what he had, and we were small. He had 12 people in this company. I said, hey, why don't we put our networks together and make this happen? Because we were trading games over modems, if you remember, long ago. So
you were connecting games over modems back in when?
Late 80s, early 90s, yeah.
So that was way ahead of its time in the sense, because I don't think anybody was thinking about that at that point. Right.
Oh, they weren't. You go to the store and buy your disk or your
right.
floppy drive. But so that's kind of how it evolved. And a lot of people think that hacking is recent. It's got a lot of news and the pandemic because it went up 300% during that period. But hacking, my first hack that I was aware of was in 1992. So it's been around a long time.
Wow. So you started with this company, you're putting these games together, networking. What happened after that? Where did it go from there?
Well, we ended up, we started putting our networks together, and it was really slow in the beginning because we only had one in Washington, D.C. It was called May East. We expanded it to Sprint, and then we expanded it to California, May West. And it's still too slow, so we started doing it in each city. So I grew that to 32 cities, and then was acquired by a company called Windstar. And then as the president of Global Data Services, expanded that all the way through Europe and Southeast Asia. So it was quite interesting where there was no internet, and people would go, what is the internet? Well, it's a fax that you can actually do. You can send a fax without touching the fax through your computer. I still remember papers going, that's sci-fi. That's not even possible. Now it touches every part of our lives.
So you created this network, and you guys were trading games there, or what was happening in the network?
Well, we kind of grew up during that period of time as it started to grow, and we started providing it to commercial and other providers locally in your state so that they could have, they could provide access everywhere. We couldn't do it everywhere. So they were called ISPs. And so we were the wholesalers. So Unit Technologies actually did commercial. PSI, the other company, did gaming and commercial at Hollywood. And then essentially I made the mistake of providing all the ISPs around the country broadband, and hence most of the traffic went over our network.
Oh, wow. So then you grew that company up and kept evolving. Tell me what happened from there.
Well, I grew it internationally, ended up buying 27 companies in 24 months at the ripe age of 28 to 30.
Wow.
And so our market cap went from 682 million to 6.2 billion. And so I basically parted the organization at 30 and did it again. I created another organization called CDC Communications, sold it, and then essentially did another. I looked for the next thing, and ClearData got into healthcare security and hosting for electronic medical records. And again, everybody said you're crazy because no one's going to give you your records. And this is way before Obamacare. So we were one of the first ones that helped the EMRs, we call them electronic medical records, get posted into a facility so they didn't take so long to deliver the service. So that was, and it's ongoing. It got to a point and we were securing hundreds of millions of records in data centers that we had to secure those records. And then I stepped away and retired. And some of my—
At what age?
That was 6 years ago. So I'm 50.
Wow, that's incredible. So you've been able to see trends, especially in this industry, before everyone else does. What is it that allows you to see those things before everybody else realizes it?
Well, the first one was dumb luck and just wanting to have fun, which grew into a business. So if I looked at somebody today and they had the idea I did, I would go, I don't know if that'll work. So of course it worked, and it was by dumb luck that I had some really good mentors. In fact, when I moved to Phoenix from DC, one of the top attorneys and one of the top accountants, somehow I got introduced to them. They've been my mentors since I've been in Phoenix for the last 30 years. And of course, Phoenix has Insight, Avnet, some pretty large, intel. And I've been able to garner their attention somehow, but I have questions. I end up calling those folks and saying, hey, I've got these decisions to make. In fact, I consulted a lot of them before I started this company.
Interesting. And how did you come up with the name Cerberus Sentinel? It's a very unique name.
Yeah, it's Cerberus. So
it's Cerberus. Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's the three-headed dog. So there's 3 C's in cyber, and it makes sure the bad guys don't get out of where they're supposed to be. And then the shield behind it is protecting people. So pretty unique. A lot of people go, oh, well, it's Cerberus Capital. No. Cerberus Sentinel is always watching and make sure the bad guys stay out.
And so, cybersecurity is obviously not going anywhere. I think it's becoming, obviously a much bigger and bigger role in people's lives, in small businesses and large businesses. Tell me about what are the biggest threats out there right now for individuals, and then we'll get into small businesses and some other ones. But in terms of just the everyday person, what are the things that we should be looking for?
Well, first, if you don't know anything about cybersecurity or the threats that are out there, the first thing that threatens everyone is knowledge. If most people understood what was really taking place every day, someone's being hacked every 11 seconds, and they aren't aware of it.
Wow.
Your credit cards, your PHI from hospitals, the data that you put in when Marriott got breached or Target got breached or Sony, I can keep going on. But your record is something that is sold on the dark net. People will buy that because they'll start buying credit cards. And how often do you look at your Experian or your credit history? they'll get all the information, call a new credit card company or submit one, put it on a PO box, and rack up $50, $100, $200,000 depending on your credit. And then you start getting notices that you're late or there's no payment 90 days later. They're already gone. They've already taken your money away.
Right.
So elderly are pretty susceptible to that. It's not just the, hey, I'm a prince in Nigeria going to give you $12 million in your email, which
got plenty of those.
But, they're getting more sophisticated. They look like credit card bills, and you go to click on it and it redirects you, and all of a sudden they have control of your computer. You never know it. And they're sitting there getting your data off, and they're mining that information. Wow. It's pretty healthy. And it used to be, as I said, back in early 90s, late 80s, it used to be a kid in hoodies. To give you an example, I had the one hack I got. Every morning I wake up, my server was locked in the night before, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Next day, that server was faster and my password was back. Well, come to find out, it was called the Four Horsemen. They were here in Arizona. They were kids who were 14, 15 years old, and they broke into Montham, Luke's Air Force Base, AT&T, Chase. You know what they wanted to see if they could get in. They didn't steal anything.
Yeah.
But they were just trying. They were curiosity. Well, those four kids ended up working with me because I begged the Attorney General, do not put them in jail. I would really like them to work for me because they're really talented and they're just dumb.
Yeah.
And they're brilliant because look what they did.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's how I learned about it in the beginning. So, when I was 24, 25, I was taught by those young kids exactly what was going on and how it's evolved. Now it's state-sponsored hackers.
Right.
Criminal organizations. So I'll ask you a question live. How much do you attribute the losses of cybersecurity in 2021? Pick a number.
The loss. So for the entire country?
World.
Oh, for the entire world? 100 billion?
Nope. It was $6.5 trillion.
What?
By 2025, $10.5 to $11 trillion they estimate will be lost on the internet because of crime or breaches. And so, how much did we spend worldwide? 172 billion. There's a big discrepancy between where it is and what we need to do to fix it. And if you think about it, the reason that's happening, hackers get to work together as groups, collaborative. They're there to try to figure out how to get the best they can, either through, they're going to ruin you politically, or they're going to, but most of it is after cash. And since we're opposing Russia and China, they actually have state-sponsored groups, even in their military, that go after us 24/7. Well, most of the folks who work in cyber here, they're working 8 to 10, 12 hours a day.
Right.
And there's 3.5 to 4 million job openings today.
Jeez. So we're spending as a country about $170 billion in cybersecurity, but the theft isn't, over 6 trillion.
6.5. That was last year. It's going to be higher this year.
Wow. That's unreal. That's unreal. And, they're becoming slicker as well. I think I've received some text messages. Hey, almost like a friendly text message as if they knew me. And, it's just a ploy to get me to answer and say, hey, no, you got the wrong number. And then they start getting your information from there as well. Right. I mean, they're getting very, very slick.
Even if they say, hey, John, this is Dave. Sergio told me to send you this, right? All of a sudden there's a link in there. You click that link, it pulls information off the net and encrypts it doesn't encrypt your phone, but it puts them into your phone so they can download the data. And you're unaware of it. You clicked it, went, where's this going?
Yeah. And then by that time it's too late.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, that's interesting in terms of the different countries and state-sponsored, hackers and so forth. Who has, from your experience, in terms of, country to country, who has the upper hand right now? Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it U.S.? or is it
Well,
even?
I probably shouldn't say, but even our intelligence over the last 6 months, our intelligence leads around U.S. Um, when it comes to cybersecurity, because there's 4 million jobs going to 12, they estimate in the next 2.5, 3 years. We are kind of a second world, third world country when it comes to digital. They are bombarding us every day, all day long. And I would say you see in the news, Russia is very sophisticated pipeline. They won't tell you, but on the dark net, they took responsibility for it. China, they're in stealing. They'd rather do it covertly and steal intellectual property. So they're in corporations all day long, every day, trying to find a way to get in and steal that intellectual property. And if you notice, a lot of their products in China come out and it looks like our product. They just took it.
Wow. And recently there was at least in terms of national security, I know that there was a ban on chips, right? And that have a certain speed that could then, power or produce nuclear weapons and nuclear weapons. Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, it's not so much, it really isn't so much the speed. It's most of our chips come from where? China. So China has this nasty habit of putting code within the chip. So each little chip in your phone, you've got 20 different chips, 30 different chips. They have embedded code. And what was happening is some of those chips were being shipped to data centers. They were being shipped to routers and things that route the traffic on the internet and sending that information back to China. So that's why HIPAA was actually no American country is to buy that product because they're notorious that they had put information in their product, sent the information back to China, and you put it in a corporation, you put it in your house. All that information that passes through there, they get a copy of.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. So if we have such a shortage, right? Obviously, we're way behind. What are we doing as a country? What are you guys doing as a company in terms of creating pathways for this workforce shortage? What's going on to fill that gap?
Well, there could be 1,000 more companies just like myself, and we would be frenemies. In fact, some of the folks around the country, we call them competitors, but they're actually frenemies because it is so hard to find the talent because there's a difference between IT and cyber. IT are really smart, but cyber is a specialty, almost like a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon, right? And you have to have the experience to do it. They just don't let you get out of school and become a brain surgeon. Because it would disrupt you. So you need the experience of being in cyber to understand the holistic way to look at a company. What are they trying to protect? How can you get into them? Most IT folks are building infrastructure, building software. They sometimes don't take a step back and go, is there a flaw? And so our job is to look at companies to train them. So maybe I take a step back. The whole reason I came out of retirement is because my friends, I won't name the companies, the Fortune 500 companies that I knew that were my previous customers said, I need you to look at this because this budget seems out of place. I'm one guy. So I started calling friends of mine in the industry from training to pen testing, and pen testing is looking at your network to see if there's a hole and if I can exploit it and how I can exploit it. And if I get in, what can I get and where can I get it? So essentially that's what we do. And then we try to train the companies. So we do gap analysis, but we just don't do one program. We encourage companies to have a second set of eyes, look at how you can get in, and then remediate, fix it, right? And some companies, believe it or not, even today, go, I don't want to know what I want. I don't want to know anything. I don't want to know what.
Stick your head in the sand.
So
you can't unhear it once you hear it.
Right.
Then it's there. It's glaring.
Have to fix it.
Yeah. And so I was telling you earlier that I worked for Caterpillar for 14 years. They were getting thousands of attacks every year, just daily on numbers, numerous times all over the world. And a big reason, I suppose, that companies have these vulnerabilities is because of the people, not necessarily because of perhaps they have the technology, but they have the process. But the weak point is that people make mistakes. They don't think before they act. What, culture is a big part of the way you guys operate with companies, making sure that the culture understands, that everybody understands their role, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about that and how important that is.
Well, it's kind of funny. When you open a bank account, they ask you all these questions about gambling or, laundering money. And it's tough now to open a bank account, and it's work to fill out the paperwork. Well, a lot of companies, when they're in compliance, so PCI DSS3, which is credit card compliance, there's all these compliances. The problem is, to date, most of the companies, they call self-attest. So they check the boxes and then turn it in, and they go, okay, we've got our compliance. No one's doing a second set of eyes or validating it or verifying it, and that's a big problem, because typically, if you self-attest, you're not going to go, hey, there's a glaring breach that could happen. They're looking to just check the box and move on, and that's changing. And the Washington D.C. and SEC, they're changing to make sure that you are in compliance, and if you get breached, you have to actually talk about it, put it in, and alert the authorities.
But that is, when you go train companies on getting set up and so forth, you're looking at their security architecture, things like that, and you're training individuals. What are the top, let's say, 2 or 3 biggest mistakes that people make in companies and that expose their company to cyber attacks?
Number one, not knowing what's there. So get a credible cyber company that comes in and does a second set of eyes. Even if it's a large company, the CISO, they might have missed something. Have a second set of eyes come in and do a test. That's the biggest problem, because they're not looking at outside parties to come in that literally don't have any kind of skin in the game. They're coming in to say, hey, this is how we can help you be a better company. Second biggest one you just brought up, people. They are not aware of the problems. So, and I always use the analogy is, you can build the greatest castle with a moat, right? And have soldiers everywhere on the walls. But if some girl or guy is talking to the outside world and knows this secret tunnel into the castle, and he wants to have an affair because you've heard about the emails, oh, come see me, or I want to talk to you. Just connecting to them, you've shown them how to get through all the defenses. So people click on things, or they carry, information, calls, and every time that email goes out, it sends information to the hacker, how I can get in, what are the pathways, and then, of course, here's a picture of me. Click on it. As soon as that happens, bypasses the network, bypasses security, and now that hacker can start to spread from one machine and go all the way through to the administration machines and your finances. It's that easy.
Wow. And it seems to be getting easier and easier, even though companies and they keep coming up with better defenses. There's always a cat and mouse game going on. As an individual, I have a VPN, right? Is that enough, or is that just
a secure VPN?
A secure VPN.
Yeah, a secure VPN that's reputable. Essentially, it keeps your information private. But again, if somebody sends you an email, and it's even to the point where, have you ever hovered over an email to see, look where it's going? Next time you go into your email, hover over it and see where it goes. And some of those emails are called redirects, and you click it from, oh, my bank. You click it, it'll take you to a page that looks like your bank, and it says enter information. Do it 2 or 3 times, you're like, what's going on? That is because you clicked that email and it took you to the page. But not only did it take you to the page, it downloaded what we call a payload in your machine that starts looking at information on your machine. A lot of it's automated.
Unbelievable. So I mean, it's it seems like we're up against an enemy that we're not prepared to defend against.
I would say we're getting better at it. We got to train a lot of people, but more importantly, just teaching people and having them be educated. I mean, think of the average age of what our Senate is, and how many people actually had the internet before, they were there.
Yeah, exactly. We're way out of date. Way out of date.
So the king was like, "I'll never have an email." Oh, he did, but it's education, understanding what's happening.
And give me a story. What's one of the wildest stories that you've seen or kind of experienced in this space?
Well, I've got quite a few, and some of them I can't talk about, but one of them was a security operations, and we were called into a breach. It was a very large organization worldwide, and they had two cyber groups in there that couldn't find it. The COO was a friend of mine and said, "Hey, can you come in because I need some help?" So I sent two of my best folks there, and within 15, 20 minutes, they figured it out. They go, "You're not going to like this." And so he called me and said, "What should I tell your friend who's a COO? He's kind of intimidating." I said, "He's a nice guy. Don't worry about it." And he sends me a picture. "Do you know this person?" I go, "Actually, I don't know that person." "Okay, good." Hangs up and I don't hear anything. My friend, the COO, calls me back and goes, "I just had the craziest thing happen. My top EVP of technology." I go, "Okay, tell me what happened." He goes, "Your engineer, cybersecurity expert, basically said, I found it when the other guys haven't. We don't understand why. And they found out where it came from." Okay, where is it? So he goes, "Follow me." And I walked down to the EVP of technology office and said, "Hey, I think we found the breach, but can I use your computer for a second?" And pulled it up, and he had things that he should not have on his computer, and a large, like 1.7 terabytes of things that he shouldn't be looking at. And what the hackers did was actually took his LinkedIn profile, and it's a group called Revel, and they put his name with LinkedIn and said, "By the way, if you don't think you're breached, here's the individual you can thank." And it was the EVP of technology who was doing things he shouldn't that actually put the company at risk.
Oh my gosh.
And they had data from the company, but they got through his computer to go through and get the financials and get the information, credit card information. And it was announced. But after they actually said that, the COO goes, "It's the first time I've seen someone just pack up and walk out of the office without saying anything."
Yeah, I mean, you're the main guy. You're supposed to be the one protecting, and you're the one that created the vulnerability.
I said, "I am sorry." And he goes, "No, but how can somebody who's aware, that knows of these issues, do something like that?" So people are people.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do stupid things.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. That's amazing. And like that, I'm sure you have 1,000 stories, but you and your team are doing some important work, obviously very, very important work. And I wish there were more of you guys. Where can companies find out more about you guys?
It's the three-headed dog, Cerberus, Sentinel.com. So that's CERBERUS, Sentinel, SENTINEL.com. Pretty long name. Our ticker symbol is the easiest thing, is CISO. So no matter whether you're in the States or UK or South America, we have offices all around the world. And so even if they don't look for someone with us, I encourage you to go find, and if you're concerned or worried or think something might be happening, have a credible cybersecurity come in and do an evaluation for you. Might cost a little bit of money, but it's better than the alternative.
Yeah, could cost you quite a lot of money and your reputation. So David Jemmett, CEO of Cerberus Sentinel. Guys, thank you so much for being here with us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. You could be the game changer in their lives. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
If you loved what you heard in today's episode of Game Changers, please subscribe and rate us. The lessons and the stories in these podcasts are immensely valuable, so I invite you to share them with a friend who needs to hear it. you may end up being the game changer in their lives.